Right, so got another 4L80 up on the stand, just draining the fluid out of it now. This one's actually for someone else. They just want me to pull it apart and kind of check everything, make sure it's all good before we put it back in theirs. And I'm going to use some used parts from an HD2 kit, because I have like 2 or 3 other transmissions that I did for other people that had HD2 kits in them and then got trans brakes or some other stuff done. So I have the parts left over from the HD2 kits. So that's pretty much what we're doing. Just kind of a real low budget refresh. That's what the fluid looks like coming out of it now. It's a nice dark brown color. Not black, not burnt, and it's not pink, it's not fresh. It does look like someone was in it at one point, had the pan off because this is all RTV on the gasket. A couple things right away. Neutral safety switch is broken. The front turbine speed sensor is broken. The rear seal I know is holding pretty good because it didn't leak at all when I had the output shaft in it. When it was tilted up like this, it wasn't leaking at all. So that one's good. But I know we'll do like a new pump to case gasket for sure. That I do every time because they rip. You couldn't reuse it if you wanted to most of the time. And I do have some other gaskets and stuff left over, so I'll start pulling this thing apart and see what we can find. Well, I might almost be able to get it off now after prying the shit out of it for a while. And then you get all this gasket material and junk falling off of it. Oh, looks like we got a couple broken sections. That looks like a broken piece of plastic, like maybe from a roller clutch or something. You know, when you do this with the RTV, you get a lot of overhang like this, and that stuff can fall off and get in the filter too, so that's always a risk with doing this. You might get it to seal a little better, but then you got risk of this stuff falling off and getting in the filter. So we got issue number 1 here. Well, actually 2 issues. So the clips for this plug are broken, and the torque converter clutch solenoid is just kind of hanging in here loose. So it wasn't even in all the way. So the solenoid would normally, I'll take this one off. Ooh, that one broke too. This stuff's really, really brittle. That one snapped right off. That's the EPC solenoid. So this normally has this little clip in it right here. And this will be pushed in all the way. And then this will be seated down around it so it won't come out. So that was wrong. So go ahead and get the rest of this harness off. I'm guessing the rest of this harness is going to be pretty brittle, and we'll have to go ahead and change this harness right away too. So we'll see if anything else breaks while we're trying to get it off. That one was okay. Alright, so I'll go ahead and get all the 10mm bolt heads out. I already hand cracked these ones loose. These are 8mm for the pressure switch. So the pressure switch bolts have the 8mm heads, so we can just twist it and pop it off. Make sure all the switches are good. We can test this with a multimeter too to make sure the switch is good. And then this one, this rear lube line comes out. And there's one more bolt here. And you can see the whole valve body lift up. Now we can pull the valve body off. Nothing too alarming here. Go ahead and get the check balls out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Get the reverse servo cover off. Alright, so now I have this Torx head and a 3/8 12 point. All right, now that all that stuff's out, I'll tilt it down, get all the fluid out, and I'll pull the pump off. Okay, so I'm going through and getting these pump bolts off. And the first thing I noticed is they're very, very loose. So this one I already got. This one, I'm barely putting any pressure on it and they're coming loose. Usually they're a little tighter than that, so I'm wondering if the pump will pop out clean too. Just inspecting the back of the bolts. There's a little gasket on the back of the bolt. See if those are damaged. I will put RTV on them. When I put it back in there, the last one I did on my personal transmission, it actually leaked. That was the first one I've ever had leak, but I did have it leak. So now I'm just going to RTV them all. Oh yeah, see that? One pry with just a flathead on the back of the pump and the whole pump just popped right out. They're usually not that easy. So I kind of feel like whoever was in here before was in here recently or didn't really have a whole lot of miles on it. That's the lockup O-ring. This ring goes around the input shaft to block the fluid and engage your lockup on the torque converter. So if you don't put that on, you won't have a lockup. Yeah, and this gasket actually came off pretty clean. Probably because it wasn't really pressed that tight. So it didn't really have a chance to get stuck to the case very well for it to rip. So pull some of this dirt out of here and then we can start pulling the rest of the guts out. All right, so let's get the rest of this out and see if we can find any other issues. I'll take the fourth drum out. Just gonna put the bearing back with the forward drum. It was stuck to the overdrive planet. Do have a thrust washer here. Pull the direct drum out. Front band. Pull the intermediate snap ring out. Intermediate clutches. And they actually look pretty good. Usually these are a little burnt up, so it's a good sign. Those look pretty good. Or it could just mean that someone recently rebuilt it and put fresh stuff in. So get the beveled snap ring out. Take the center support out. Oh. Make sure I get the rear lube port out first. Rear lube port in the case goes through the center support. So if that's still in, you can't get the center support out. What I'll usually always do too is pull this third piece of this bearing off the back side of the center support, and I'll just drop it down so it stays with the rest of the bearing. Get this thin little snap ring out of here that goes underneath. That goes underneath the center support. Now I should be able to pull the rear carrier out unless it has the little cup on the output shaft. Pull the sun shaft out. Alright, so it doesn't have the little cup on the back. So that came right out. Now I'll pull the rear band out, reverse band. Just check that. Those look a little bit worn, like it's missing some of the material there. So I'll check the direct drum. So the intermediates all look decent. These steel seals look okay, but the clutches are kind of missing some material here. They're like delaminated and wore out. So I'll probably go ahead and replace these clutches. I do have some clutches, so I'll probably keep the steels, replace the clutches on these. Yeah, all of them are missing this little section. So this does look, I think this is an aftermarket set of clutches. It'll probably work just fine like that for a long time, but you can see they are starting to delaminate and fall apart. I do have a fresh set of clutches that are similar to that, and you can see the little like puzzle piece shape thing there, and that's where they're starting to delaminate. Or like this clutch here, this is a Borg-Warner high energy clutch, and this doesn't have any of those little puzzle piece shapes around it. So I'll check the forward. Same thing, that one's kind of delaminated. But all the steels look really good. Yeah, not all of them are delaminating. The top one is. Yeah, so just that bottom, just that top one, the thickness are at 0.72. I believe the factory thickness is 80 thousandths. So if I check this Borg clutch, that one's about 80 thousandths. And this one here, this style, this one's about 80 thousandths also. So looks like they got a little bit of wear on them. Unless that was a thinner clutch on the rebuild, from the rebuild kit, but overall the forwards looked pretty good too. So I'll probably replace for sure the ones that are delaminating. This is just going to be in like a street driver. This isn't going to be like a turbo car or anything. So it's not really going to be high power. So we should just be good with swapping out the clutches that are delaminating. Pretty confident these are going to be good. These are like always pretty good. Yeah, those all look really nice. All right, now we'll check the overdrive clutches quick. I got to get the snap ring off. Alright, so that snap ring comes off. Get the input shaft out. Just gonna be careful that this doesn't fly out. Alright, so we got the overdrive planetary set. And check those. Those all feel good. Check this roller clutch. Oh, I don't know, it's tricky to get out. I've never had one. How's that hard to get out? Nothing looks broken. Just gonna double check that really good because that green plastic looked similar to the green plastic that was in the pan. So I just want to make sure that there isn't anything missing from this. Alright, so it looks like everything's here. Go ahead and pull the clutches out of this thing quick. These usually look pretty good too. Yeah, those look fine. So what I'll do is I'll test the spray quick, make sure that's decent. That feels good. I'll put this all back together. I hear that metal on metal. Make sure it's down all the way. I can put the input shaft back in. Check the Teflon seals. Make sure those are not ripped or anything. Those all seem good. So be careful when putting this back in that I don't push that planetary set out. There we go. Snap ring back on. So that one's done. So I think all we're gonna end up doing with this thing is replace a couple clutches. I might go with the HD2 kit. Since it's a part, I might talk to the owner and see if we just want to dual feed it internally instead of using the HD2 plate. So we'll try to bump up the spring pressure. So I'll see what the owner wants to do, if he wants to actually do the HD2 or if we would just want to dual feed it internally and bump the line pressure. And I'll see what we have and what we got to buy yet. We got to buy the speed sensor, a harness, I have the clutches, and I should have the HD2 stuff. So we'll probably wait on that. We'll get this thing back together. Alrighty, so I got some stuff ordered for this. Just like a new case gasket, new harness, new speed sensor. He's not sure if he's going to run neutral safety switch, but he said he does have one. Decided against using the HD2 kit plate. So the HD2 kit is just this triple layer plate that does the dual feeding. Decided I'm just going to dual feed it internally. So that'll be drill a hole in the drum, remove the second sealing ring, plug the hole in the case, and then we'll have the dual feed. I'll steal the third accumulator spring from the HD2 kit, use the HD2 kit pressure regulator spring and boost valve. And then I did order a HD snap ring for the intermediate snap ring. So, and the orange spring for the reverse servo. So that's what we'll do on this one. I'll do that in the next video probably. Also got the roll cage for the Ranger, so that's pretty cool. Get to working on that thing sometime soon here before summer. And I also have something else going on that's going to be coming here that we'll be able to get some videos out of. So that's kind of a surprise. Stay tuned for that. Some of you guys may or may not have seen this thing already. So stick around.